Mickey and the Big Storm. One cold winter day, Goofy and Mickey were visiting Donald. "Shh!" cried Goofy. "Did you hear that?" Donald turned up the sound on his radio. Mickey listened carefully. "There will be at least 1 foot of snow," the voice said. "Hooray!" Donald cried. "It's going to snow!" "I'd better get going," said Mickey, as he put on his coat. "I have to get ready for the storm." Donald and Goofy looked at each other. "We have to get ready for the storm too," said Goofy. "Right," agreed Donald. "We'll need a sled, of course." "Then we can go sledding down Powder Hill," Goofy said. Goofy and Donald went to the garage to find the sled. Donald pulled it out from under a pile of boxes. Then he poked around some more. "Look what I found," he said. He held up a pair of boots and some skis. "We might need these," he added, "in case the snow gets real deep." "It's always best to be prepared," Goofy agreed. "Boy, oh boy," Donald cried happily. "I can't believe it! It's snowing already!" "I'd better get ready for the storm too," said Goofy. "I'll see you tomorrow." Goofy whistled a happy tune as he walked toward his house. He was thinking about all the fun he was going to have in the snow. As soon as he got home, Goofy got all of his snow things together. He found his skis, his boots, and all of his warmest clothing. Then he piled them by the front door and went straight to bed. Donald went to bed too. "I hope the radio was right," Donald said, tucking himself in. "I hope it snows all night." The next morning, Donald jumped out of bed bright and early. He raced over to the window. "This is great," he cried, looking out of the heavy blanket of snow. "It's still snowing. It's a good thing I'm prepared." Donald got dressed and quickly found his sled. He made his way down his snowy front walk and bumped smack into Goofy. "I'm off to Powder Hill," cried Donald. "Last one there is a rotten egg." Soon they were both at the top of the hill. "Hang on!" shouted Donald. Down, down, down they raced to the bottom of the hill. "That was great!" cried Donald. He turned around to look at Goofy. "Look out below!" came a voice, as a giant snowball came rolling down the hill. It came to a stop at Donald's feet. Donald stared at the funny-looking snowball. It had a face like Goofy's. "You just gave me a great idea," Donald said, brushing the snow off his friend. "Let's get everyone together for a snowball fight." "Okay," agreed Goofy, "as long as I don't have to be the snowball." "Very funny," said Donald. "Gee, the snow is coming down fast. Let's get the sled before we can't find it." It wasn't long before Marty, Verdi, Huey, Dewey, and Louie joined Donald and Goofy. They picked teams for the snowball fight. They built forts, and they made huge piles of snowballs. Finally, it was time for the fight to begin. "No fair, Goofy," called Donald, when a snowball took him by surprise. "You're not supposed to hit the people on your own team." "Gosh!" cried Goofy. "Was that you? It's snowing so hard I can't see very well." By this time, They had all been out in the snow for quite some time. "We're going home now," said Huey, Dewey, and Louie. "We're freezing." "Why don't we build a snowman?" asked Goofy. "Okay," said Donald. "I'm getting tired of throwing snowballs anyway." "Can we help?" asked Marty and Verdi. "Sure," replied Goofy. "Come on, we'll make a snowman together." With so many people helping, the snowman was finished in no time. "That's the best looking snowman I've ever seen," said Verdi. "I feel like a snowman," said Marty. "It's really snowing hard, and I'm cold. I think we should go home." Verdi agreed, and the two brothers left Goofy and Donald to play in the deep snow. After a few minutes, Goofy said, "Gosh, I'm hungry." "Me too," said Donald. He thought for a second. "There's only one thing to do," he said. "Let's go home and make something to eat. Come on, Goofy, you can come with me." "I can't wait to get home," declared Donald. Goofy agreed. "I sure could use a cup of hot cocoa and a nice warm fire." "Say no more," replied Donald. "Your wish is about to come true. We're almost home." But when they got to Donald's house, they were in for a few surprises. "I'm out of firewood," groaned Donald. I'll fix us some cocoa though. That should warm us up." "Uh-oh," cried Donald when he looked in his cupboard and refrigerator. "I'm out of cocoa, and I'm out of milk. In fact, it looks like I'm out of just about everything." "Don't worry," replied Goofy. "We can always go to my house. I'm not exactly sure what I have in my cupboards, but I probably have more than you do." It took them a long time to get to Goofy's house. The snow was very deep. "It sure is cold," chattered Donald. But when they got to Goofy's house, it was cold inside too. Goofy headed straight for the wood box. "Gosh," he cried, "I forgot to bring in the wood." Then Goofy looked in the kitchen. "I guess I forgot to go shopping too." He flipped on the light, but nothing happened. "This is just great," cried Donald. "We're out of firewood, food, and now we don't have any lights." "I know something else we're out of," said Goofy. "Don't tell me," moaned Donald. "We're out of luck," Goofy replied sadly. "It's getting dark," said Donald. "We'll have to go into town. We need to buy some food and some candles." So Goofy and Donald went out again. The snow was even deeper than before. It came all the way up to their knees. "Hooray!" cried Goofy when he saw the supermarket. "We're almost there." But when they got to the door, they saw it was closed. "Closed!" cried Donald. "They have some nerve. Let's try the corner grocery store. It's always open." But the grocery store was closed too, and so was the delicatessen and the bakery. "Everything's closed," groaned Donald. Just then the wind blew icy snow in his face. "I'm cold, wet, and hungry," moaned Donald. "Me too," said Goofy. Goofy and Donald trudged through town. All they needed was to find one store that was open, but of course everyone had gone home because of the storm. "What will we do now?" asked Goofy. Mickey will know what to do, answered Donald. He's our only hope. Goofy and Donald trudged up Mickey's neatly shoveled walk. Then they knocked on the door. "Come in," cried Mickey. "What are you doing out on a night like this?" Then Mickey got busy making his friends warm and comfortable. Goofy and Donald sipped hot cocoa in front of the warm fire. They told Mickey about their day. "Gosh," Goofy asked, "why do you have plenty of food and firewood, Mickey?" "Well, when I heard on the radio that there would be a storm, I decided to stop at the store on my way home to make sure I'd have everything I'd need. In fact, I'm extra prepared. Would you and Donald like to have dinner and spend the night?" "We'd love to," said Goofy and Donald. "It looks like the only thing we did right to prepare for this storm was to have a good friend like you, Mickey," Donald smiled. A wonderful wind. One autumn night, the wind roared around Piglet's house, making the shutters bang and the branches thrash and creak. As the wind moaned and Piglet dozed, he dreamt about another blustery day when the wind had lifted him up into the sky like a kite. Luckily, Pooh had rescued him by holding onto a string that had come unraveled from Piglet's shirt. The morning after his dream, when Pooh came to the door, Piglet peeked out and asked, "Is it still windy out?" "Because if it's windy out, I must stay in." "It's all right, Piglet," said Pooh. "Last night's wind has turned into a breeze. A breeze is much friendlier than a wind." Piglet stepped outside, and when he felt the warm, swirling air, he had to agree. But just as Piglet was beginning to relax, the wind picked up again and whooshed through the woods, shaking the trees and sending the leaves tumbling. As Piglet's ears blew back, he pulled Pooh toward the house, crying, "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear!" Once they were inside, Piglet leaned against the door, hardly listening to Pooh, who said, "You can never tell with breezes. Sometimes they change their minds and become winds again." Suddenly Piglet heard a loud knock. He dived under the table, crying, "It's the wind! It's trying to get in!" "I don't think so," said Pooh, "but I'll check, just in case." Pooh went to the door and shouted, "Go away, wind!" "Open up," replied the wind. Said Pooh, scratching his head. "The wind sounds a lot like Tigger. Maybe it's playing a trick on us." Suddenly the door burst open, and in blew Roo and Tigger. As they each held up a pinwheel, Roo said, "Come outside and watch them spin. They're so pretty when they turn." "What do you think, Piglet?" Pooh asked as Piglet crawled out from under the table. "If I go outside," he asked Pooh, "you'll stay close to me, won't you?" "Yes, Piglet," said Pooh. "Don't worry." Outside in the wind, Piglet held Tigger's pinwheel and watched the spokes spin round and round. "Now try mine," said Roo excitedly, handing his pinwheel to Piglet. Piglet held out both pinwheels, feeling the wind rush around him, and suddenly found himself lifting off the ground. "Pooh!" Piglet cried, Help! Pooh quickly grabbed onto Piglet's feet and pulled him back to earth. Relieved, Piglet dropped the pinwheels and hugged his friend. "Thank you, Pooh," he said breathlessly. "That was close." Just then, Roo floated past them, holding both the pinwheels and squealing with delight. "Look at me," he called happily. "I'm flying." "Come back here," Tigger called, as he bounced up and took Roo's hand. "Your mother says you're too young to fly." Once Roo was safely back on the ground, Rabbit hurried by them, carrying a kite. "Nice day for kite flying," called Pooh. "And Piglet flying, and Roo flying," Tigger said to himself, giggling. "Yes, it is," Rabbit shouted. "It's too windy to garden, so I thought I'd fly this beauty instead. Would you like to come along?" Pooh asked Piglet, "Do you want to go?" "Oh dear," said Piglet. "Do you?" "It could be fun," said Pooh. "I suppose," said Piglet, thinking. "All right, I'll go, as long as I can just watch." So Piglet and the others followed Rabbit to a field, where they sat at the edge near some bushes and watched the wind snatch up Rabbit's kite and lift it into the sky. As the friends sat together, Piglet noticed something swoop past him. "Look, Pooh," said Piglet, "a spider!" They all watched as the spider, attached to a single thread, flew from one bush to another. "The wind is helping it move," said Pooh. "That's another nice thing about wind." "The spider could crawl," said Piglet. "But flying is faster," said Pooh. Just then they saw Owl overhead. "Owl!" called Rabbit. "Look out for the kite!" Owl swerved out of the way, caught a draft, and glided down to the grass. "Ah," he said, "what a pleasant wind! It helps me fly, you know. All I have to do is find the right current, and in no time I get exactly where I want to go." As Owl looked at his friends, a peculiar look came over his face. "Someone's missing," he said. "Where's Eeyore?" "I'm not sure," answered Pooh. "I haven't seen him today." Owl was worried. "That was some storm last night," he said. "I think we'd better go over and see if Eeyore is all right." So Rabbit reeled in his kite and the friends hurried toward Eeyore's gloomy place. There they found Eeyore and Christopher Robin. "Amazing," observed Owl. "All that wind and you still have a house? Weren't you worried?" "Yes," Eeyore said, "but the wind was making a nice, sad sort of tune. I hummed along, and before I knew it, the storm was over. It was almost fun." "Well," announced Christopher Robin, "I know another way to have fun on a windy day. Come with me." The friends followed Christopher Robin to a small lake, where an old but sturdy sailboat was tied to a dock. "Get in, everyone," invited Christopher Robin. As the friends clambered into the sailboat, Owl said, "A jaunt around the lake sounds splendid, but I'm off to help Kanga with some baking. Why don't you join me there for tea later? I'm sure she won't mind." The friends hopped aboard. Christopher Robin steered the boat so the wind could fit the sail. In no time, the sailboat was gliding across the water. Pooh turned to Piglet and asked, "Is it too breezy for you?" "I'm fine," said Piglet. "As long as I hold on tight, I probably won't fly away." Pooh moved closer and put his arm around his friend. "I won't let you go," he said reassuringly. For a while the wind gusted gustily, sending the boat around the lake in lovely loops. But when the wind got tired of pushing, the boat drifted to the middle of the lake, and Christopher Robin said, "Oh my!" Piglet lifted his head. "What happened?" he asked. "Nothing much," said Pooh. "There isn't any wind, so we're stuck." "Stuck?" said Piglet. "Until more wind comes," said Christopher Robin. As the friends waited, Piglet gazed around the lake and tried not to worry. For the first time, he wished the wind would return, and when he felt something tug at his ears, he sat up straight in his seat. "It's here!" Piglet squealed. Quickly, while the wind puffed up the sail, Christopher Robin brought the boat back to the dock, and the friends hopped off. After Christopher Robin tied up the boat, they all headed toward Kanga and Rue's house. Along the way, Tigger sniffed and said, "I smell a skunk." Pooh pointed up the path. "There it is," he said. "We're downwind." As they stared, the skunk saw them and shyly turned off the path. A while later, Tigger said, "Now what do I smell?" "Acorn pie," said Piglet. "No," cried Roo, "chocolate." Pooh pointed his nose in the air. "Yum," he said, closing his eyes and breathing deeply. "I smell honey." "Come and get it," Kanga called, her voice carrying on the wind. "It's time for tea." "What do you think of the wind now?" Pooh asked Piglet. "It makes pinwheels spin," exclaimed Tigger. "And kites fly," added Rabbit. "And owls glide," offered Owl. "And boats sail," noted Christopher Robin. "The wind can also whistle a tune," Eeyore said. "And carry smells from here to there," remembered Roo. Piglet sat up bravely in his chair. "I think," he said, "we should open a window and enjoy the lovely afternoon breeze." It's raining, it's pouring. The 7-day house stretcher. Rainy weather usually didn't bother the 7 dwarfs. In fact, they liked the rain. But one Monday morning, when they woke up, it was raining so hard that they could hardly see the trees or the path through the forest. They couldn't even go to work. The dwarfs took turns looking out the window, but there wasn't much to see. They took turns playing checkers, but after a while they grew tired of checkers. Grumpy grumbled, Sneezy sneezed, Sleepy fell asleep in his chair and snored. Finally, Happy decided to pop some popcorn over the fire. But the first pop was too much for Grumpy. "All this noise," he sputtered. "Sneezy sneezing and Sleepy snoring, and now Poppy popping popcorn. I mean, Happy popping corn. A body can't think in this little place. We need a bigger house." He moved his checker game to the farthest darkest corner and sat there with his hands over his ears, grumbling, of course. Tuesday, it rained even harder, and Grumpy was even grumpier. All he would talk about was building a bigger house. "Come on, Grumps," Doc said. "This house has always been just right for us." "It isn't just right," Grumpy grumped. "It's too small, and we're all in each other's way." Just then, there was a soft tap, tap, tap at the door. "I'll see who it is," said Doc. He opened the door, and there were a mother deer and her fawn, dripping wet and shivering. "Goodness," Doc said. "You can't stay out in this rain. Come in and get dry." The animals clip-clopped into the warm room. "What did I tell you?" Grumpy muttered. "This house is too small. Before you know it, we'll need a house stretcher to make it bigger." But everyone, even Grumpy, moved over to make room for the deer. On Wednesday, with the wind still blowing and the rain pounding the roof, the dwarfs heard a loud thump at the door. Doc opened it. "Oh my," he said. In walked the biggest brown bear he had ever seen, with her 2 cubs. Of course, they were dripping wet, and the cubs looked very sad and hungry. Doc gave the bears a pot of leftover soup, and they drank it in front of the fire. That evening, 2 clip-clopping deer, 3 snoring bears, and 7 dwarfs sat by the fire, toasting their toes. But it was a tight squeeze. Even Happy was beginning to wish that the house could be stretched. By Thursday, the rain was making everyone grumpy, but when Happy spotted 4 very wet squirrels clinging to a tree branch, well, he couldn't turn them away. "Come on in, little ones," he called. After all, 4 little squirrels wouldn't take up much more room. But with 2 clip-clopping deer, 3 snoring bears, 4 chattering squirrels, and 7 dwarfs huddled around the fire, the house seemed very small indeed. On Friday, no new visitors came all day. Grumpy had just sighed a big sigh of relief when the dwarfs heard a soft fluttering at the window. Bashful opened it. The rain blew in, and so did 5 of Snow White's doves. They perched on the mantel and fluttered their wet wings all over Grumpy. They strolled around the dwarf's feet, pecking up the crumbs Happy brought them. Now there were 2 clip-clopping deer, 3 snoring bears, 4 chattering squirrels, 5 fluttering doves, and 7 dwarfs crowded around the fireplace, and the house seemed smaller than ever. By Saturday, everyone was tired of the rain. The house was so crowded that it was hard to cook or clean or even play checkers. That night, Sneezy heard a tiny scratching at the door, so tiny that it made his nose itch. "Ka-choo!" he said. "I'll see who's there." 6 shivering little rabbits were huddled on the doorstep. "Ah, ah, ah." Bob right in. "Ah, chew," Sneezy said. "Dopey, get some towels. We have more company." "What did I tell you?" Grumpy muttered. "Too many folks for this little house. I'm going to bed." And that's what all the dwarfs finally did, because with 2 clip-clopping deers, 3 snoring bears, 4 chattering squirrels, 5 fluttering doves, and 6 hopping rabbits around the fire, there really wasn't much room for the 7 dwarfs. When the dwarfs woke up on Sunday, the sky was blue. Sunshine! Happy shouted. Look, everybody, beautiful sunshine. All the dwarfs, even sleepy, tumbled out of their beds. Sure enough, the rain had stopped. The leaves and grass were still wet, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Dog opened the door, and the 7 dwarfs and all the animals stepped out into the bright, warm sunlight. How wonderful it felt to be outdoors again! Slowly, the deer, the bears, the squirrels, the doves, and the rabbits began to move off into the forest. Suddenly, everything was very quiet. The dwarfs went back inside and began to make breakfast. For the first time in days, they had the house all to themselves. Why, look how big the house is, Grumpy said. I didn't realize we had so much room. Hee hee hee, I know why, Happy chuckled. With so many visitors, I'll bet the house did stretch. And everyone agreed that it really must have happened that way.